Hi, welcome to our ESOL program presentation. My name is Laura DeGatano. I worked on this presentation with Alyssa Hoover and Kayla Edison. The first area that we are going to discuss is how do students qualify for ESOL. So the first step for a student to be qualifying for ESOL is to take what's called the Home Language Survey. When students enroll in a public U.S. school for the first time, regardless of their age or grade level, the enrolling adult must answer home language survey questions in a set order. These questions come in a group of 3, and they were required by the Georgia Department of Education and are embedded into the OLR, which is the online registration, and in the paper enrollment form that is used by Cobb County School District. So again, the first step to qualifying for ESOL is taking that home language survey. Once the student has completed the home language survey, they will be given the WIDA screener. The home language survey questions is a group of 3 questions, and the first one would be which language does your child best understand and speak? Number 2 would be which language does your child most frequently speak at home? And number 3 is which language do adults in your home most frequently use when speaking with that child? For many years, when the answers to one of these 3 state-required questions was indicated that a language other than English was spoken, the student would be noted as having a primary or home language other than English. That's called PHLOTE, primary or home language other than English. That was considered a potential English learner, and they were screened for proficiency in English, but this is no longer the case. As of July 2023, the process has changed as follows. If the answer to all 3 of the home language survey questions are a language other than English or American Sign Language, the student is considered a potential EL student and must be screened at the local school, or for a middle and high school, referred to the IWC for screening. If the answer to responses of the 3 initial questions are a mix of English or other language, parents are usually asked to respond to a 4th home language survey question. So on this slide, you're going to see the procedures for how a student would be screened from the IWC in the way that that would go. It's important to know that the home language survey questions are supposed to be asked only once upon initial enrollment in the U.S. schools. The original response to the home language survey questions and the original screening conducted with the student first enrolled in the U.S. school legally determine their EL status, and that status follows the student when they enroll in any new district that they go to. However, the home language survey questions are often repeated when the student transfers to new districts. Problems can arise when the parents are inconsistent or indicate that only English when enrolling in a new district. This often results in not scheduling an English learner for ESOL support. To support local schools in identifying these students, the ESOL data specialist and that ESOL consultant team work closely with student reporting to monitor the EL history report in the SLDS, which is the State Longitudinal Data System. If a student in EL status transfers in and is not properly coded, they will notify the school. At that time, the student will be coded correctly and scheduled for ESOL support. So if you look at this questions down here, they choose only one sentence that describes their primary language. And then below that, you're going to see a chart that is a decision making for the home language survey responses. So the purpose would be the questions that the parent receives, and then it says the decision-making guidance. If the parent statement is this, then this is the decision that would be required by the school systems. So on this slide, you are going to see that there is the WIDA, which is our screener that we use. Once they have got the home language survey, they will take the WIDA screener. The WIDA screener is an English language proficiency assessment. This is given to incoming students in grades 1 through 12. It is available in 2 different methods and modes. It's an online, but then it's also a paper and pencil test. There's also a separate WIDA screener for kindergarten that is only offered as a paper and pencil test. So as you can see, any scores below 5 will qualify that student. for the ESOL services. So it goes through per grades, all the way from 1st to 12, and then it says a cluster grade from that as well on the first test, and then it goes all the way for the 2nd to 3rd, 4th to 5th, 6th to 8th, and 9th to 12th. It's important to note that all public schools are required by law to screen potential EL students. Parents' permission is not required for this screening. Potential ELs in grades K to 5 are screened at the local school by the certified Cobb County School District teacher that have successfully completed that required WIDA screening certification and scoring training for each screener they will administer. The chart down there, as I said, details that the WIDA screener test is used for each grade level and how that test is used, noting that the only difference will be the kindergartners would only receive that paper and pencil test instead of the online version. So on the next slide, I'm going to explain how many students qualify for ESOL. I am going to explain that for the 3 schools that the 3 of us teach at. Kayla currently teaches at Murdoch. I teach at Timber Ridge, and Lissa teaches at Kennesaw Elementary School. So this slide is going to show the 3 schools. It's going to name the school, and then it's going to discuss the students that qualify per school, and then it's going to be the languages spoken, and then the number of teachers and the degrees that those teachers hold. So we're going to start with Murdoch, where Kayla works. At Kayla's school in Murdoch, there is 64 students that qualify for their ESOL program. The languages spoken are Spanish, Portuguese, Korean, Japanese, Nepali, Chinese, and Vietnamese. The teachers are 1 full-time teacher who has a bachelor's in elementary education, a master's in early childhood education, a specialist degree in curriculum and instruction, ESOL endorsement, reading specialist endorsement, and a teacher support specialist endorsement. The next school is the school that I teach at, Timber Ridge. Timber Ridge has 39 students that qualify. We have a pretty diverse group of students that speak Spanish, Portuguese, Korean, Japanese, Chinese, Dutch, Farsi, Vietnamese, Hebrew, and Hindi. We have 1 full-time teacher who is an education specialist of teacher leadership. She's an ESOL endorsement, and she's currently enrolled in the Georgia's Best program to get her doctorate. The last school is going to be Kennesaw, and that is going to be where Alyssa teaches. Her school has 21 students that qualify for ESOL in kindergarten. There's 28 in 1st grade and 19 in 2nd grade. The languages spoken is Spanish. Speakers from Mexico, Spain, Guatemala, Argentina, Nicaragua, Venezuela, Honduras, El Salvador, Colombia, Norway, and the US. The Portuguese speakers are from Brazil. The Vietnamese speakers are from Vietnam, and the Japanese speakers are from Japanese. That school has 1 full-time ESOL lead and 7 classroom teachers who are endorsed in ESOL. The full-time lead has a Bachelor of Science in Communication and is certified in childhood education. Along with her ESOL endorsement, she earned her degree from Florida State University, where she got a degree in early childhood education, her early childhood certification from Kennesaw State University, and her special education certification from Georgia State University. She also got her ESOL endorsement from Cobb County in Metro RESA.
So our next slide is going to be commonly used TESOL related acronyms. And again, these are from Murdoch, Timber Ridge, and Kennesaw Elementary. On this slide, you will see the acronyms. There are 12 listed below, with the top 6 being the most commonly used phrases you hear amongst teachers. So those are ESOL, English for speakers of other languages, ESL, English as a second language, TESOL, Teachers of English as a Second Language, ELL, English Language Learner, and EL, English Learner, and ML, Multilingual Learner. You can continue reading the rest, but I just wanted to highlight the top ones that we feel were most commonly used within our school. You can see down below we're all very familiar now with the WIDA screener and the access test as well that our students are currently taking or about to take. And now I'm going to go over the standardized assessments used to determine English language proficiency. So as mentioned before, when we were going over the acronyms, two of the most commonly used tests, one is the WIDA screener, and this is usually given within the first 30 days, and it is the initial screening for eligibility. And then the next test is the access testing, which is administered in January or February, and it is a test given to measure the growth in language proficiency. So my students are actually being tested on that currently right now, and it's been really fun to see their growth. Next up, we're going to talk about what language support delivery models are used within our 3 schools. So first up, we have Timber Ridge. They use the pull-out, push-in, and the innovative model. You can see here that their teacher is part-time, so she has less flexibility to use the guidance from the district. Their ESOL teacher usually pulls students out of the classroom unless there's a majority within that classroom, and then she will push in. And when it comes to the innovative program, it depends on if the classroom teacher is ESOL endorsed. And at Murdoch Elementary, you can see K through 3, they have one funded segment that is 45 minutes, and in grades 4 through 5th, they have 2 funded segments that are about 50 minutes each. So for Murdoch, for their pull-out method, it's exactly that. She's going to pull out students from the classroom, and she says ideally from all different classrooms to teach them in a small group. If that teacher is going to push in, she works with the collaborating teacher and it kind of helps align things. And she likes to group kids with similar needs. And similar to Timber Ridge, if they're going to use that innovative approach, the teacher has to be ESOL endorsed. It's going to be reduced class size, and they are going to scaffold the instruction and develop language and literacy throughout the day. And Kennesaw Elementary has similar approaches with the pull-out, push-in, and innovative. Our pull-out method is going to be the most commonly used method amongst our kiddos and our teacher at our school. They are grouped based on their ability, and they each are there daily for about 30 minutes. Our push-in method is again when there is a large group of kiddos in that class, and it's at a specific time every day. And our innovative program, again, that teacher has to be ESOL endorsed, and they have to have a level proficiency score of 3.5 or higher. Next, we're going to discuss the content and language standards used to guide instruction for multilingual learners. So our ESOL teachers, they use a large range of research-based activities to really enhance that vocabulary and literacy development. And specifically to Cobb County, our ESOL kiddos, they use the Vista Higher Learning Program, and at Kennesaw Elementary, our kiddos use Imagine Learning Language and Literacy Program, and that's one tool that they use, especially if they were flagged on a Mira in the red. Instead of going on iReady, they have to be on Imagine Learning. The teachers are going to scaffold their learning and use differentiated activities to best support the students. Again, that differentiation piece is really going to come in from their proficiency level. And a lot of the support is going to come from pre-teaching, using visuals, sentence frames, etc. And then when it comes to formative practices, they're going to, again, have those visual supports and then tools such as word banks to help support them. And our ESOL teachers are really going to use those WIDA standards to guide their instruction. So our key language domains are narrate, argue, inform, and explain. But we incorporate opportunities for listening, speaking, reading, and writing within each language domain. But again, the ESOL students are expected to attempt as much as their language ability will allow in the grade level standards.
All right, next up, we are going to be talking about how the ESOL teacher will collaborate and communicate with our classroom teachers. So the first thing that the homeroom classroom teacher and the ESOL teacher will do to collaborate is that they'll talk about the English language proficiency that the student may have and determining their needs and how they can make content for that student available in the best way that meets their needs. The ESOL teacher will always have open lines of communication with the homeroom teachers. Anything that they need, the homeroom teacher might think of that they need, they can email or go see, or just at any point, just talk to them about kind of what they're doing and if the ESOL teacher has anything that they can provide to make that student more successful. They also share lesson plans so that the ESOL teacher can provide support with content covered in the classroom. If they're being pulled out, the ESOL teacher can have access to the lesson plans that the students in the classroom are doing, and so they can kind of work together in that way. The ESOL often discusses student progress as it's deemed appropriate. And lastly, the ESOL teacher also will participate in any RTI, response to intervention, or individualized educational plan or IEP meetings that need to be held on or about the student. Next, we'll be talking about how students qualify to exit direct ESOL language support services in their school. So a student will receive and qualify for ESOL services if their language proficiency score on the screener is below a 5. A 5.0 composition on the Access is an automatic exit for all English learners in grades 1 through 12. 4.5 or above is eligible for consideration, but a 5 is an automatic exit. For any kindergarten English language learner, to exit the services, they need a 5 or greater in listening and speaking, reading, and then a 4.5 in writing, which is the maximum score in writing. So that's why that one's a little bit lower, but that is the maximum one for kindergarten writing. After leaving, students are then going to be monitored for 2 years to ensure that they maintain their English proficiency and that they weren't maybe exited prematurely or something. What distinguishes monitored English learners from those actively receiving services? Active students are going to receive services daily from the ESOL teacher in whatever model that their school follows. Monitored students are students who have exited the program with composite scores of a 5. They are then going to be closely monitored for 2 calendar years to make sure that they are continuing to be successful without the language support that they may have needed in the past. They do not take the access test. Monitored students do not take the access test or receive any extra ESOL services. They monitor their progress through the classroom teacher. They'll fill out a form just checking in on their classroom grades each quarter to see kind of how they're doing and making progress and that they're not falling behind. How is the academic progress of students who have exited direct ESOL services tracked? So they will be tracked through grade level screeners. The Amira and Beacon are a couple of examples. Monitored students have their classroom grades checked 3 to 4 times a year using the progress monitoring form that I mentioned prior in this couple slides prior. They also will review their report card grades, and anybody who has 1s or Ds or lower will have individual monitoring forms completed that are more specific, and then the team of teachers will meet to create a plan of next steps for that child. For more support or questions about the ESOL program, you can find that on the CCSD ESOL webpage that is linked here. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation.